The Blood of Dawnwalker is currently one of the games I'm most excited to play right now, a dark medieval world. Vampires running the government, which honestly might explain a few things. A former The Witcher 3 director leading the project. A protagonist who is human during the day, a vampire at night, and only has 30 days to rescue his family. On paper, this game sounds incredibly easy to get excited about. But there is one big question. Does any of it actually work when you have the controller in your hands? Does the 30-day time limit create genuine tension? Or does it eventually make you feel guilty for simply exploring the world? Is the directional sword combat actually deeper than what we had in The Witcher 3? Or is it another system that sounds fantastic during a developer presentation, but starts to feel repetitive after 10 hours? Well, the early impressions are finally here. A lucky group of players have had the opportunity to go hands-on with the Blood of Dawnwalker, and they have shared their opinions, both positive and negative. So today, we're going through everything we know from these early impressions and looking at what could make the Blood of Dawnwalker genuinely special, as well as where some of its most ambitious ideas could potentially become problematic. And before we get into all of that, let's address the obvious comparison. The Blood of Dawnwalker looks like The Witcher 3. Sometimes it moves like The Witcher 3. Its menace, dialogue presentation, gloomy European villages, music, and even certain aspects of the protagonist's appearance are going to remind people of Geralt's adventures. And honestly, there is no escaping that comparison. That's mainly because Rebel Wolves is being led by Konrad Tomaskiewicz, the former game director of The Witcher 3, alongside several developers who previously worked at CD Projekt Red. But the important thing is that The Blood of Dawnwalker isn't simply trying to recreate The Witcher 3 with vampires. The developers have described the game as a narrative sandbox, and that idea could be one of the most interesting aspects of the entire experience. After the prologue, the game apparently stops separating its content into traditional main quests and side quests. Instead, everything revolves around one central objective: save Cohen's family and eventually reach the vampire ruler's castle. Everything else is essentially an opportunity. You can pursue it, you can ignore it, you can interrupt it, you can fail it, and in some cases you can completely destroy the possibility of completing it. You can approach different regions in different orders. You can abandon storylines. You can kill characters involved in those storylines, and you can even allow certain opportunities to disappear simply because you decided to spend your limited time somewhere else. And that brings us to the setting. The game takes place in Vale Sangora, a fictional Carpathian valley during the 14th century. Europe has already been devastated by war and the Black Death, and human society is collapsing. Then, something even worse arrives. A group of ancient vampires emerges and takes control of the region. Their leader, Brentsis, promises to protect the people of Vale Sangora from the plague and free them from several traditional feudal obligations. And technically, he keeps that promise. People are protected from disease. They are given a certain level of stability. But there is a horrifying trade-off. The people must provide blood to their new rulers. So while the vampires protect humanity from the horrors surrounding them, they also effectively turn humans into livestock. And that moral contradiction appears to sit right at the center of the story. The vampires are brutal, but the human rulers who came before them weren't exactly running a peaceful democracy either. Rebel Wolves has repeatedly emphasized that the characters and factions in this world are supposed to exist in shades of gray, rather than being divided into obvious heroes and monsters. And personally, that's something I really like, because if the game actually manages to make you question who is right and who is wrong, it could make the story far more interesting than simply having vampires as the obvious villains. You play as Cohen, a young man who lives with his parents and siblings in a small village. But Cohen isn't exactly a normal human. He has a condition called argyria, caused by exposure to silver dust, which gives his skin a distinctive bluish, gray appearance. More importantly, the silver inside his body interferes with his transformation into a vampire. When Cohen is bitten and turned, he doesn't become a traditional vampire. Instead, he becomes a Dawnwalker. During the day, Cohen remains mostly human, but once night falls, his vampire abilities awaken. And this isn't simply a cosmetic transformation. The day and night cycle fundamentally changes the way you approach the world. During daylight, Cohen can rely more heavily on his human abilities. At night, his supernatural powers become available, allowing him to approach combat, exploration, and certain situations in completely different ways. But there is another problem. After a vampire takes Cohen's surviving family members, he is given just 30 days and nights to rescue them and disrupt the vampire regime. And this is where things get really interesting. When players first heard that Cohen had only 30 days to save his family, there was an obvious concern. Would the Blood of Dawnwalker constantly put a giant ticking clock on the screen? Thankfully, apparently not. Time doesn't continuously advance while you're simply exploring. You can fight enemies, search buildings, Travel through the world and take your time without watching your deadline disappear every few seconds. Instead, the clock advances when you complete specific activities, progress certain quest stages, level up, or intentionally pass time. And importantly, the game tells you in advance when an action is going to consume time. Each day and night is divided into 8 segments, meaning you aren't punished simply for stopping to admire a village, investigate an interesting location, or take in the scenery. And I think that's a really smart decision, because rather than turning exploration into a stressful race against the clock, the game seems to be asking you a much more interesting question. What is actually worth your time? Helping one person could mean arriving too late to help someone else. Investigating a missing character might reveal that they've already died because you waited too long. A quest that was available during the day could change or disappear completely once night arrives. And suddenly, your choices have consequences. Not because the game is randomly punishing you, but because the world is continuing to exist around you. That could make the Blood of Dawnwalker feel much more dynamic than a traditional open world RPG where you can leave a quest sitting in your journal for 40 hours and the characters somehow remain frozen in time, patiently waiting for you to return. Of course, we can't talk about the Blood of Dawnwalker without talking about Cohen's vampire powers. The game gives you access to abilities that simply wouldn't be possible for a normal human character. And because Cohen's powers become stronger at night, the day and night cycle isn't just an aesthetic feature, it directly affects gameplay. You have to think about when you want to approach certain situations. Do you want to fight during the day and rely on your human abilities? Or do you wait until nightfall and unleash Cohen's supernatural powers? That decision could completely change the way encounters play out, and this is where the game could potentially stand apart from The Witcher 3. Because while the comparisons are obvious, Rebel Wolves appears to be trying to build an RPG around the idea that time, identity, and choice are all connected. You're not simply playing a character who happens to have vampire abilities. You're playing someone who exists between two worlds, human during the day, vampire at night, and with only 30 days to decide what matters most. Of course, we still need to be careful with these early impressions. A handful of previews can't tell us everything about a game that is trying to be this ambitious. We still need to see how the full story develops, how the 30-day system works over an entire playthrough, whether the combat remains engaging, and whether the narrative sandbox actually delivers meaningful consequences rather than simply giving players the illusion of choice. But from everything we've seen so far, The Blood of Dawnwalker is shaping up to be one of the most interesting RPGs on the horizon. It's clearly inspired by The Witcher 3, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it's trying to be The Witcher 4. Instead, it seems to be taking some of the ideas that worked in that game and building something around a much more aggressive concept of player choice. You have a limited amount of time. The world doesn't wait for you. People can die. Personally, I think that's worth giving a chance. And considering how much I love The Witcher 3, I'm definitely going to be playing this one when it releases. But now I want to hear from you. What do you think about The Blood of Dawnwalker so far? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe for more gaming news, leaks, updates, and breakdowns. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.